Welcome to the Lamar County Animal Shelter. My name is Fred Morris, and I've been involved in raising funds to build a shelter for over 10 years. Thank goodness we now are well on our way to have a first-class, world-class shelter to take care of our animals in Lamar County.
Alrighty. Tell us who you are and why you're so passionate about animals.
There's a lot of therapeutic value in animals that even a lot of pet owners are not aware of, particularly until they lose a pet. And at that point they realize that they're part of the family, part of their life, and can reflect on the therapeutic value they've had from those animals, dogs and cats.
Now I know you always had a dog with you, and tell them a little bit about the training that you do with dogs or with the inmates.
I'm not a dog trainer. I'm a puppy raiser for the Guide Dog Foundation. The dogs that I've had are trained in the prison in Forsyth by inmates. And they're trained on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They get about 3 two-hour training sessions in dogs of different ages so that they can learn from each other. They're trained with their basic training to of course sit and lie down and to leave things that they shouldn't be involved in. They're taught to ride in the floor of the front seat of the car rather than in the car seats. They're taught to defecate and urinate on a hard surface in what they call a place, usually so big square, so that if you're visually impaired, the cleanup is not a big deal. If you go into a restaurant, they're taught to get under. If you go into a room where there are chairs, they're taught to find a chair. But they're encouraged to learn about 19 different commands here at the prison. And once they finish that basic training, which is about 12 to 15 months of age, they go to New York for their disposition. And at that point, they're determined whether they can go to a person that's visually impaired, go to ATF, or go to assist a veteran with PTSD. From what I gather, they graduate for visually impaired about 8 people per quarter. Once a dog has done its basic training and gone through the complete program for visually impaired, the foundation has $55,000 invested in the dog. They do not go outside of their realm for breeding purposes. They keep very, very accurate medical and breeding records on the animals themselves. They will go outside, I think, occasionally for some different blood, but in the meantime, they know the lineage on each of these dogs for generations. But most of the dogs, from what I gather, go to veterans with PTSD. When they reach the second level, they go to training for things like opening and closing doors, turning lights on and off, picking things up off the floor. But above and beyond everything, they're taught to be a companion. And once you're attached to one of these dogs, and I've been in touch with 12, 15 at least. There's nothing like it. And Jessica, as you know, they're perfect when they're working, but when you let them go, they're dogs. So it's a very, very worthwhile experience to turn the dog over and know that it's going to be a real assistance to someone who needs it, And I hate to say it, but I've had so many of them, I need one.
I'll move over here so you can actually, you want to turn and look at me. From a historical perspective, tell a little bit about the team of people that you've had working, how your passion bled over to everybody. It bled over to me, but to Tom, but how everybody, some of the people on the team that you've had working with you on this, as well as the community.
Well, working with the dogs and the dog people become very attractive. If you see on TV these real heart-wrenching ads and so forth and so on, I guess that's good for what they want to do, and that's just raise money. But my associates have had the opportunity to walk into animal shelters with me, and all of a sudden the dogs are barking, and some are at the fence saying, "Come pet me, let me take me home," and some are back in the corner and they're afraid and scared. Many of them were brought there, they had no name, they were hungry, they haven't had the proper veterinary backup, the animals themselves are lacking. And if you're in the shelter once or twice, or in 2 or 3 shelters, you quickly realize that these animals need help. And they're not there because they wanted to be there, and they weren't born because they asked to be born. And the need to help those animals is spontaneous. I mean, it's you can't reject the feel for the need once you hear and see these animals in their frightened condition.
Now, who are some of the people that actually work with you on this project?
Well, my mainstay's been Tom Wellner, and Tom and I have had many, many discussions about the shelter and the layout of the shelter and the size of the shelter and management of the shelter, and it's been good for both of us. And fortunately, we've had some very good back and forth, and it has a tendency to open your mind and make you look at the whole thing in a very constructive manner. George Worley has been with us on the thing, and George doesn't say much, but he's the quietest man in the room, which means he's the smartest. And then the greatest input has come from talking to directors of different shelters. They have the experience of running an animal shelter is kind of like having a dairy. It has to be fed clean 7 days a week, twice a day. And so it's labor intensive. Not only is it labor intensive, unlike a dairy, an animal shelter has to be as strong as a jail. It has to be as clean as a hospital. And it needs to be as well put together as a 5-star hotel. That's why at this point in our development of the shelter, I'm really conscious about things like the colors that we're going to use, the aesthetic pieces we can use inside that take it away from the institutional or dog house kind of look, and make it as quiet as possible. I'm very concerned about indoor air quality so that we never have any odor and the odor's fresh and that the temperature's light and fluffy. And I'm at a point that those things to me are very, very, very important. You might think I'm saying that from the standpoint of the public looks favorably upon it, but that's the most favorable thing for the animals. They need to be comfortable. And two things that concern me about a shelter. One is the animals, because they can't tell you if they hurt. And number two is the volunteers. There will be a half a dozen volunteers in Lamar County, probably no more than that will jump in and take charge of this thing and really see it go. And we need people to walk dogs within the compound. We need fosters. We need people to come. My service dog that we adopted from Jasper, Georgia, maybe you knew Baxter, maybe not. He was fostered for 7 weeks. Nobody would adopt him. He was a big old black dog like this big old black dog here. Nobody would. He was a fully trained service dog. And had it not been for a foster, he would have been put down. And so fostering is extremely important. We're totally, let me say, unaware of transport, but there are people who make a business of transporting animals to the north where they've had spay and neuter laws for years and are lacking for dogs. And thank goodness for the internet. I say dogs and cats. And thank goodness for the internet. People can go on the internet and see a dog or a cat and say, I like that dog. And on a regularly scheduled basis, there are transport companies who will take those dogs to specified places in the Northeast or the high Midwest and relocate these animals. And that shows you the passion people can have by just making eye contact with a dog or a cat. But it's a big business. There's one company, and I can't think of the name of it. They have a bus that will house a good number of dogs or cats, and they have an airplane. And they'll fly up and down the East Coast, relocating dogs that people may have seen on the internet that they like, and relocate them that way.
Now you gave a welcome to the facility. Give them a tour of the facility as though it's already built. So with the cats, when you walking in the cat area to the right, and what you really wanted with the dogs, and how you can see them through the glass and so on.
The thing that I reflect to mostly is that we're in the business of selling dogs and cats. We have to prepare them to meet the public, and we have to do everything we can to socialize them in terms of people and other animals. What I really like about our facility, I'll start with the front, but then I'll go to the back, which is by far the most important part. When you enter our facility on your immediate right, we'll have a room with cats, young cats or kittens, at large, in an area where they can play. They'll have their climbing devices and water and litter box and that sort of thing, but they're immediately socializing with other, can I call them inmates? Other inmates. On the immediate right behind that, we'll have some cat condos with a few mature cats. I call them lap cats because they're cats that somebody might want to, who lives in an apartment, might want to have an animal that they can have on their lap and be at their disposal, but there'll be a few of those adoptable type mature cats. And then one of the most outstanding features I think we'll have, particularly in terms of adoption, is a bonding room. And it's a room that will be set up much like a living room in your house. Have a sofa and a chair, a lamp, draperies, with no outside distractions. It's just you and the animal. And you can take the animal there and be with it however you like. You'll learn whether it wants to be on furniture, maybe it wants to be on your lap, maybe it wants to be left alone. But in any event, you have the opportunity to associate with the animal with no distractions and without taking it home and bringing it back and those sort of things. And that takes care of our cat population. Then, as you enter the right, as you enter, on the left are our dog runs. And the dog runs are separated by block, which helps cut down the noise. Each dog run has its own drain for liquid deposits. Solid waste is picked up, put in a plastic bag and taken to the landfill. It doesn't go into the sewer system. To the slope of the drain goes to the front of the dog run, so it takes very little water to flush it down, and so they should be easily maintained. Those dogs are behind glass, and so when you go in, if you have children, there's no danger of them putting fingers through the wire or anything like that. They're separated by glass. Helps control the noise, which helps control the barking, and the dogs seem somewhat protected in the ones that I've seen. They're not as anxious to stay away from the front of the cage, but they're very secure. They're very well ventilated, and that's what we do for the dogs. Now the dogs are located in a hallway type device, and at the back side of that is a patio about 12 by 12. Hopefully when we finish our construction, we'll have about 5 outdoor dog runs, about as wide as is necessary off of the patio, but about 50 feet long. And we can put as many as 3 dogs per run, and they can socialize, run, and play. If you get more than 3, you run into an alpha dog situation and it doesn't work. But it gives us an opportunity to give these dogs a means of socializing and working together. The temperature in Lamar County is less than 40 or more than 80 degrees in less than 100 times a year. Consequently, it might be 30 degrees this morning, but it would warm up enough that those dogs can be taken out and put into their run and have some exercise, some play, some socializing during the day. That's probably the most outstanding feature in my book that we have that I haven't seen in other facilities. I've seen the outside runs, but I haven't seen them. Ours is so constructed, there's no way a dog can get away or get loose. it's still inside the building, inside the compound. So that takes care of how we bring them in and socialize them and maintain them in the facility. The most important part in the back, and that's the incoming dogs. And that can be a very dangerous situation in more than one aspect. One is when you bring a dog in, it has no name, you're not aware if it has any shots, it's very frightened, it's malnourished, and scared to death, and might well have been put in the truck with a pull hook, picked up by the neck and stuck in a crate. Nothing could be any more frightening. So when the dog's brought in, it's initially put in an isolation booth, which has a concrete floor, concrete walls, and until it defecates and can be tested for parvo, it stays in that isolated unit. And that's a very critical part of the operation because parvo is deadly and it needs to be dealt with immediately. And if the dog has parvo, it needs to be dealt with. Once it's tested for parvo, it can then be moved over into, we have 3 stations and that for that second phase. Those phases have an outside run, which is on grass. That dog can be let out on the grass, closed off, clean the inside cage, bring it back in the inside, go around and clean in the outside cage, and that dog can stay there until such time as it's determined whether it's fit to be socialized or not. If the dog is determined to be how do I say it, unsocializable, it's probably put down. Otherwise, once it's determined that it can be socialized or is sociable, they take it to the main runs, which is where the public, at this point, the public cannot see these dogs. But once it finishes second phase, it goes to the inside runs where it's exposed to the public and then continues with the process. It can be led outside, it can be walked, it can be taken to the bonding room, or hopefully it can be adopted. But once it's stabilized in the display area, it can be taken out and walked in the wetland trail and handled just like you would your family pet. So that gives you the front part with dogs and cats. It gives you the back intake with the prevention of parvo, socializing, and introduction to the public. And that's pretty much my vision of the operation and the facility. Having said all that, it's a lot of work. It takes volunteers to contribute their heart, and hopefully we'll have some of the appliances and so forth inside with washers and dryers and dishwashers and those kinds of things that will be super efficient, so our volunteers aren't standing there washing dog bowls and what have you, but they're working with the animals. And so that's pretty much my summation of the operation of the shelter.
I only have a couple more for you. Make a plea for donations from volunteers as well as financial donations. So if we use this as a way to recruit money or whatever.
Well, first off, with regard to finances, the public needs to realize that the city and the county each operate an animal control program. If those programs are put together efficiently and operated efficiently, there should be no increase in the cost of operation in the facility, because we're running two programs. We need to put them together in such a way that they become efficient. As far as money is concerned, at this point, I'm not really sure what
Well, you don't have to do that part. What about for volunteers, as far as recruiting volunteers?
Hey, you want to get in the picture?
I was trying to figure out.
You coming around, are you?
Can you zoom out some of this?
I don't necessarily want to get his pajamas in the thing.
Okay, all right.
Well,
Well, how about let's do this, because we go ahead and we've got quite a bit. I don't want it to stop recording. I know you tell me at lunch all the time. You're like, we have three people. We have people who are looking to drop off a dog, people who might be trying to retrieve a dog that was lost, and then you got people who are going to be adopting. And so, if you would just imagine that person is walking into the facility and you're in there, and give each one of them a thank you for whatever portion of part that they play.
Okay. All right. There are, get my thoughts right here. Basically, three types of people who might enter the facility. Is that what we're looking for?
Mm-hmm.
Three, you've got the volunteer, you've got, who else was it?
What you just say to me, you say you got the people who are dropping off a dog,
Yeah.
because they can't take care of it anymore.
Yeah,
You got people who are missing a dog and they're trying to retrieve their dog.
Yeah.
And then you got people who just want to adopt a dog.
we have at the facility, unfortunately, we have what they call owner surrenders. For whatever reason, sometimes it's elderly people, sometimes people who move and can no longer have a dog, but we have those types of people who come by the facility. And fortunately, unless there's an immediate foster, those dogs have to be put down. Then we have, what was the second kind?
You said people who are looking for a dog that got lost, like
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah, and then we have retrievers, dogs who have been lost, particularly times of the year like Christmas, 4th of July, when there's a lot of fireworks. Some dogs lose their mind. They just run. And when it's all over, they don't know where they are, and neither does the owner. So we have dogs that arrive at the shelter that were simply, I guess, designated as stray because they're lost. And then we have people come in who want to adopt a dog. And back to my earlier statement, we're in the business of selling dogs and cats. And we want to get the animals in there and get them cleaned up, get them socialized, and prepared for adoption. We're selling dogs and cats, and we have to have them in such a way that they're socialized and will fit into a home. On the one hand, on the other hand, as I said earlier, there's too much training on the wrong end of the leash. And a lot of times we need to make sure we get the right dog placed with the right person. And if you live if you're married and have one child, live in a one-bedroom apartment, don't adopt a Great Dane. I mean, there needs to be some judgment put in over and above the heartbreak that can happen there.
Well, the last one, just thank people for coming to the facility. That'd be the last thing. And anything else you want to say at the end? That's it.
Well, just thank you very much for coming to visit our facility. It's been a labor of a number of people who have their heart involved in seeing to it that we have a world-class facility. We can't fail because we have an ideal first-class location.